Damian Lillard has amassed a Hall of Fame career with the Portland Trail Blazers and has been labeled one of the best shooters and point guards of all time. Due to that, the Portland Trail Blazers in this offseason should have traded him to a contender, considering how much he has done for the franchise. And due to this success, the Blazers, when tasked with this trade demand, did do right by Damian Lillard. They sent him to a team with previous championship experience, and also with arguably one of the greatest players of all time up to this point. Giannis Antetokounmpo in the future might be dubbed as a top 15 player of all time, considering all of his accomplishments. Now, that might come with a little bit of a grain of salt, because the stuff that Giannis has accomplished seems like all came in one season. Besides the MVP award and the Defensive Player of the Year, that championship is really the only thing holding his legacy together as actually a good legacy, because everybody knows you need a championship. So unless he wins another championship, and this time with Damian Lillard, Giannis' legacy very much depends on Damian Lillard. That's a topic for another video, on how Giannis' legacy needs to be bolstered. But let's talk about what Damian Lillard did for the Portland Trail Blazers. In all the years he was there, which was an accumulative 10 years, Damian Lillard brought a lot to Portland. He averaged 25 points per game, 7 assists per game, 4 rebounds per game on 60% true shooting percentage in his career for Portland. But he had some years which were otherworldly for a starting point guard. When it comes down to it, he was one of the most efficient point guards in the league, with some of the best playmaking skills in the league as well in those last few years with Portland. If we go from 2018 to 2023, which is arguably the 5 peak years of Damian Lillard up to this point, he averaged 28 points a game, 7 assists, shooting 90% from the free throw line, and 37% from 3 on almost 10 attempts a game. Now that is elite 3-point shooting. His true shooting percentage was also very high, amassing a 62% true shooting percentage in that time span. Damian Lillard had a prolific career with the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, if we stop thinking about statistically, we can just look at it narratively. Constantly, Damian Lillard gave Portland playoff chances despite a lacking roster and coaching. An example, there was no second superstar ever. Yes, LaMarcus Aldridge existed, but he existed when Damian Lillard was far from his peak. He had depth that consisted of Al-Farouq Aminu, Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, guys of that caliber, and bad coaches like Terry Stotts in the past. And despite all of that, Portland was a perennial playoff contender, sometimes with the ability to make it deep in the playoffs, as going as deep as the conference finals one year. Because of this success, Damian Lillard put Portland on the map. Portland, after those years that they contended and they tried to beat up on the Lakers' Shaq and tried to get through the Western Conference Finals that year, after that year, it seems like Portland just struggled as a franchise. And to say that they didn't would be a lie. They definitely did struggle. Now, yes, they had some years with Brandon Roy taking over, but as a whole, Portland was never good until Damian Lillard stepped back in. Not only that, did he bring playoff success and the playoff pushes and letting them be known as one of the best Western Conference teams in the league every year. But Damian Lillard brought memorable performances. As a point guard, he dropped 70 points in one game, which was just this season, by the way. It was very recent. And many buzzer beater playoff moments when he was younger and he beat the Rockets on a buzzer beater, and also against the Thunder that seemed to be a super team with Paul George, Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, the whole spiel. Not only that, he had one of the greatest playoff games ever, arguably, in Game 5 against the Denver Nuggets. Damian Lillard did so much for the city of Portland, they deserved to repay him with a good trade. And Portland did. They did right by Damian Lillard. They gave him a good trade to send him to the Bucks, a team that just won a championship recently. And although that championship is very doubted, and kind of like you really didn't win that championship unless you win another one, it seems like they did right by Damian Lillard. They gave him a running mate in Giannis Antetokounmpo who fits Damian Lillard's game perfectly. Damian Lillard, a guy who struggled with double teams in the postseason every single year in Portland, now has a running mate who has that same problem. But when you have two superstars that deal with double teams, it'll be fine. It's just like LeBron and Anthony Davis. Yes, LeBron and Anthony Davis on their own respective teams when they were by themselves had to deal with double teams. But when you put them together, and yes, it wasn't a bubble environment, but when you put them together and put them in the pick and roll, they seem dominant. Same thing can happen with Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo. What is the one thing that holds Giannis back as a player? His ability to space, his ability to shoot threes. So defenses can collapse on him and his team. What is the problem with Damian Lillard? He gets trapped at the key. He gets trapped at the half-court line. He gets trapped so high up the court that they need somebody to run full head of steam down to the basket. Because of that, how are you going to double a guy at half court, but also double a guy who's such a good paint presence that some people see him as the new generation Shaq? This shows much optimism for this duo moving forward. Giannis Antetokounmpo is probably the most dominant paint player in the league, maybe besides Nikola Jokic. And Damian Lillard is probably the most threatening player outside of the three-point arc in the league, probably besides Stephen Curry. So if it's not Stephen Curry and Nikola Jokic, this could be the best duo in the league. And in the midst of all of that, the Portland Trailblazers did right by themselves. They got prospects back. They got tradable players back. You can look at that in one of my recent videos where I said the Portland Trailblazers have one of the best futures in the league. But the Bucks also did right by themselves. Now, is their depth lacking? Yes, I can say right now that their depth is a little bit lacking. Relying on Pat Connaughton to probably put in 30 minutes a night for you as your best defender in the backcourt can be iffy, and it can be. But they might be able to make it happen. We know Damian Lillard is a cone on defense, but I feel like when you have such a rim protector of Giannis Antetokounmpo and Brook Lopez in the paint, I feel like it makes the rest of the defense a lot easier to play. You just have to be able to close out on three-pointers, and Giannis and Brook Lopez will cut off anything that is within the key. And on kickouts, like Giannis has done many times in the playoffs, when he gets doubled in the paint and he has to swing it on the perimeter. Unless Pat Connaughton is the only guy that's ever open, now he has relieved himself of a defender. One less guy that can come help him in the paint. And Damian Lillard has done the same thing for himself. There's one less guy that can come double him at half court, considering Giannis, once he gets into the 1v2 section, he can beat a 1v2 in the paint. He'll either draw free throws or he'll just score in between them because he's longer and bigger and stronger than everybody else. This duo is a match made in heaven, and I can't wait to see what they can do. Am I a fan of the Bucks? No. I'll be praying on their downfall. But when it comes to just viewing basketball, I think it could be some beautiful basketball being played in Milwaukee this year. Thank you guys for watching the video. Make sure you leave a like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.
Hey, come on, I got a bag on me. You try to take it, leave you stinking like your last homie. Shit kinda cakey, little baby, put that ass on me. But I ain't that horny, do you got some cash for me? Why every time you ask them that, bitches act funny. And you keep trying to hold the strap, you won't slap for me. You too happy, I can tell you never had money. Every time you get on live, gotta flash money.